So diseases are a problem. They're a problem with people, they're a problem with plants. And how do we control them? Frankly, the best thing we can do is just do all of the things that give plants a chance to be healthy. It's very similar to us as people. If I have proper nutrition, hydration, sleep, all that stuff, I have a better shot at not getting diseases, or if I do get a disease, surviving it. Plants are no different. The more we can do to keep them generally healthy, the better off they are. So like grass, for example, if we're mowing it short all the time, like on a sports field or a golf green, then it'll tolerate that, but you're subjecting it to risk of disease. And so maybe we try to do things to keep it better, because diseases have to be managed. They can wipe us out. Like behind me, you can see a little bit of necrotic ring spot. That's a terrible disease in turf grass, and it can just wipe out entire patches of grass when that disease infests us. All right, I've got this patch out here of something going on in my potatoes, and when I come out here and look really carefully at it, I can see that this plant is just overall not very healthy. I've got this petiole with all these leaves is beginning to die. I've got, as I go further down, I've got this guy that's almost dead, and this one is dead. That's most likely disease. I see this in several plants. That's another thing I can use to help me identify if I've got disease problems or not, is if it's happening to several plants. Otherwise, it might just be, injury from the wind or something like that, but this is definitely a disease problem out here. What disease is this? It's not a disease, actually. This plant has just been grossly overwatered, and so it died. That's what happens. So not everything is the disease, but sometimes disease comes in after the fact. Okay, when we're looking at diseases in plants, one of the things we want to do is kind of look at patterns, and sometimes it's a little difficult to identify, is it a disease or is it just something else? Is it possibly just old age? I mean, just like people, plants die, when they get old and die. And sometimes, we don't know if it's just natural senescence and the disease was opportunistic and just came in. So like over here, for example, you can see these potato plants that are starting to go down. Now, it's a little early for that, and so it very well could be a disease. And I'm gonna go over there and look at it here in just a minute. We'll show some photos at that point. But if you look here in the foreground, these plants right here are pretty healthy looking. They're nice and green, they're tall, the leaves look normal, everything looks pretty good. Over here, I've got plants that are a little bit yellow, and they're that way by design because this is a research project. They've intentionally been stressed, and so this is a nutrient deficiency. It's not a disease. Again, the disease might come in and be opportunistic. We make the plant unhealthy by having a nutrient deficiency, but that yellowing is from nutrient deficiency and not a disease per se. We also want to look at patterns on the leaves themselves. We can see spots on the leaves, like this is some blight that's having a problem here on these potato plants. And we also can see leaves that kind of roll, like that guy right there. That could be potentially disease or even a virus. All right, there's kind of two approaches to managing diseases. One would just be, let's just apply fungicides or whatever we might need in terms of control on a calendar basis. And sometimes we might need to do that. In other cases, we would want to do what we call scouting, where I'm looking around for things. But like if you look behind me, I've got this necrotic ring. Quite honestly, once that's in the soil, it's there. And it's going to be there every year. And I'm probably going to have to treat it every year. So in that case, I would have a calendar basis application. Other things though, I just need to kind of walk around and look for things. In some cases, we can control it and treat it and it doesn't come back. And then we just kind of keep an eye on it. So if I have a disease or I suspect I'm going to have a disease problem, I need to apply a fungicide. Again, follow label directions. Sometimes these are dry products that get spread. Sometimes they're a liquid spray. We need to make sure we cover the whole area. Unlike herbicides where I can kind of go around and spot spray the weeds, like if I was going to treat this area behind me with this necrotic ring, I really need to treat this whole area and make sure I get good coverage. I put on the right rate at the right timing. So like for this particular disease, we want to apply it at proper soil temperatures. If I apply it too early, too late, I've really missed my opportunity. So it's really important to make sure we understand the life cycle of these things and when the fungicide needs to be applied. And again, that should be on the label. All right, when we're talking about prevention and control of diseases, any kind of pest, we want to talk about integrated pest management. These diseases can affect us. When we're talking about diseases in plants, we're talking about fungal diseases, bacterial things. We want to do the things that would help control that. So we might have something where we need to apply a fungicide or a bactericide, and no different than people, like my Neosporin here, insert link in bio, or my Onextron, different types of things that I might use as medicines for people are similar to the things we would use in plants. A lot of times people are like, oh, I hate pesticides. They're just these toxic things. Well, they are toxic, and we have to be careful with them. Just like we have to be careful with medicines that we take. But I like to think of pesticides as crop medicines. But they are only part of what we want to do in terms of integrated pest management, which includes a whole host of other things that we might want to do to help prevent and control disease. For example, one of the things we can do is control leaf wetness. Most of these pathogens like it when it's wet. And so the longer the leaf is wet during the day, the higher chance you have of having a problem. So one of the things we can do is, instead of watering in the evening and keeping those leaves wet all night, we can wait and water in the morning, and the sun comes up, dries the leaves off, and we have less likelihood of having a disease problem. As always, with any pesticide, really any chemical, we need to be careful. We need to treat things with respect. It's important to follow label directions, including safety. Use PPE, personal protection equipment, that's required with various things. In terms of fungicides, bactericides, they're a little more toxic than herbicides, not quite as toxic on average as insecticides. So we do need to be careful and treat them with respect. And again, follow the label, follow the MSDS sheets. So be sure and make a comment if you have something you'd like us to talk about in the future. We're happy to do that, but let us know.